right, guys. We are live with another episode of Faith the Nation. Just want to test the mics and everything like that. Make sure that you guys can hear us. Let us know in the comments section. Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything's good.
Okay. Yeah, we're live with another episode of Faith the Nation. We've got a little bit of a special episode today. We are going to be joined live by a social media influencer, YouTube video maker up in Alberta, Canada. Uh, his name is PJ the Belt, and he's going to be joining us tonight as we talk a little bit about Alberta separation. This is something that obviously down here in the South, we don't hear too much about it. But believe me that there's some big things that are happening, and I've been following PJ the Belt for a few months now, and he's got a lot of good information and insight about the very real possibility of Alberta actually separating from Canada and becoming its own independent nation. I'm joined with Brother Matt Lepasic, and of course, I'm your host, Deacon Brother Alex. God bless you guys. Let us know in the comments where you guys are watching from. Thank you guys and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And Matt, are we ready?
We're ready. All right, guys. So I am in New York City. I'm traveling. So we're doing a little bit of remote on remote with extra remote. So any technical difficulties, let us know in the chat room, and we'll bring up our guest here right now. And Alex, go ahead and take it away because I'm going to be working on some stuff here in the background. I'll pipe in.
Yeah. All right. We're joined here with PJ the Belt. God bless you, PJ. Welcome to the channel, Faith the Nation. How you doing today?
Hey, man, doing great. How are you guys?
Man, doing good, doing good. I'm excited to have you on, PJ. As I mentioned before, I've been following you for a few months now, especially since the Canadian election that recently happened several months ago. And there's a lot going on in Alberta. There's a lot going on in Western Canada. There's a lot going on in Ottawa. And so I just want to, before we get started, I would just like to ask you the question for our viewers that maybe down here mostly in America, and of course some in Toronto. Give us a little bit of an understanding of this Alberta separation movement that's happening and why it's taking place.
Yeah, so the Alberta separation movement, or the way we like to call it, independence, because independence is definitely the correct word here. Alberta is not so much looking to separate from Canada as it is looking to become sovereign and exercise its own independence. So this is something that is not new. I'll start right there. The Alberta independence movement has been going on at least officially since the 80s. There's been a multitude of political movements since then. And it started when Trudeau the father, you guys know who Trudeau is. He actually
Yes.
had a dad who was a prime minister in the 80s, and Canada was going through hell, more specifically Western Canada, under his thumb. This guy literally came in and he was wreaking havoc in Western Canada, just like his son would do 40 years later. Long story short, he blocked Alberta from being able to export its crude oil freely, its hydrocarbons, and then imposed a tax on top to be able to literally take money that belonged to the provinces. I don't know if you guys are familiar. In Canada, provinces own their resources. But Trudeau didn't want to see it that way. He wanted to not have Alberta have so much power over the rest of Canada, being oil rich and all that. So he imposed a tax on there. And so that started the Alberta independence movement. As you guys know, we just had an election here where Donald Trump was a huge factor here in Canada. It just happened literally just back in April. And the Liberals, who have been in power for 10 years and have made everything worse in Canada, every single measurable metric, Canada is worse. they used Trump as they dangled Trump in front of people and basically manipulated them into voting for them again. And Alberta, along with Saskatchewan, but primarily Alberta, were the two provinces that rejected the Liberals soundly. They just rejected them, but we still somehow ended up with a Liberal government yet again, and we're going to be suffering another 4 years of anti-energy policies, anti-family, and so on and so forth. So Albertans have had enough, and support for Alberta independence has skyrocketed. Some polls have it in the mid 30s, others have it as high as the mid 40s. And you got to remember, the magic number here is 50% plus one. And some
let
polls, again,
let me ask you about that. Yeah, let me ask you about that because I've had this discussion with Matt, who's working in the background right now. He was under the impression that it has to be like a little bit more of a majority than just 50% plus one. What exactly does Alberta need to be able to declare its independence?
Because this is something that has never been done before, there's precedent, but not quite to the point where the referendum was actually won. Quebec came very close. They had two referendums. I believe the first one wasn't nearly as successful as the second one, where they came literally, I think, 49 to 51%, 49 to leave and 51 to stay. So we've never actually crossed that line where a province actually got the 50% plus the one. But I try to participate as much as I can with the Alberta Prosperity Project, which is the organization spearheading this whole effort to get Alberta to become independent from Canada. And they do want to see as big of a vote as possible. The more resounding support, the merrier, because then they can't make a case to say, well, the support might be there, but maybe it's not there today, this and that. They're just trying to avoid technicalities, but a referendum, the real majority is 50% plus one. That's why the Quebec one didn't go through, because they didn't quite get there, but they've been receiving pampering from the federal government ever since, because they came so close. If the number wasn't even close, like they could have, they needed to go to 65%, then they wouldn't have done all the things that they've done for them,
Yeah. So another thing is, I believe it's Bill 54 that your Alberta's premier had recently, I guess, established as a change within the way that this referendum can be held. Tell us a little bit about Bill 54, what it's done for the movement, Alberta independence, and then also, again, just from watching your videos, you've been very informational as far as like this other guy that tried to, I guess, fight you guys or create his own referendum. Tell us a little bit about how that went.
Yeah, so the previous law, because Alberta, since I think 2019, under the previous premier, which is the equivalent of a governor here in Canada, he created a law where it allows for citizens to bring petitions that can be binding on government. His name was Jason Kenney. He then got booted out because he wasn't conservative enough. And Alberta, when we want a conservative premier, we want a real one. But he created that law, but the law was nearly impossible to reach. The numbers were something to the effect where you would have to get like 300,000 within 90 days or as high as 700,000 signatures. And these are verified signatures. You can't confuse it with like signing an online petition from change.org or something like that. You have to put your address, you have to put your name, some sort of ID, confirm that you're actually an Albertan. And our current premier, Danielle Smith, who is more conservative than the previous guy, at least she's so far shown that, has actually made it more attainable. Instead of being 300,000 plus up to 700,000, she lowered it to 177,000 within 120 days, which actually makes it attainable, because people think, well, 177,000 out of a population of 5 million people. Do you know how difficult it is to get 177,000 people to sign a paper with their address, a physical paper with their address. That's really difficult. And then you have this individual, a has-been politician from one of the most corrupt governments in Alberta history. Alison Redford was the premier when he was the deputy premier. This guy is ridden with scandals. At some point, it's alleged that he went to Poland because I believe that's his background, and he spent like $20,000 and he expensed it to the taxpayers. And it was a personal trip, and he expensed it to the taxpayers. But anyways, this guy hadn't been in the public eye for a decade at least, and then suddenly he just popped into the picture as the Alberta independence movement was gaining momentum. He suddenly showed up and came out of the woodwork, and he created his own petition, which is not, it's not really to have a real independence referendum, because if you want to vote against the real referendum, then just do that. You can always vote no and try to defeat it that way. He doesn't want the referendum to even happen. That's the bottom line.
So by him creating his, I guess, his own petition, does that kind of mess up the possibility of an actual independence referendum from actually being on the ballot?
Yes, my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, not even close. My understanding is that you can only have a petition at a time, a referendum at a time. I've literally heard it on the news, and I've heard it straight out of this individual's mouth, saying that his goal is to change the conversation by not having the actual independence referendum. So he would take up the time that would be dedicated to the real one, to the real independence referendum, by creating a bogus one. His is different from the real independence referendum because it's not a constitutional question. He's looking to make government policy, official government policy, that Alberta will never even attempt to separate from Canada. No matter what Canada does to us, no matter how much they take advantage of our industries, no matter how much they stifle our progress, we'll forever be Canadian. That's how he portrays it.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. So he's really trying to just put his own stink in that mess. Basically, he's trying to mess you guys up big time. Sabotage.
Oh
yeah. Tell us a little. Obviously, from your experience up north. Obviously, we had two big elections. We had our election a little bit before the Canadians' election, and you kind of alluded a little bit to it about how Donald Trump kind of messed up the elections in Canada. Tell us a little bit about that. How did Donald Trump, I guess, mess up the Canadian election?
Yeah, I suppose you can say he threw the Liberals a lifeline. Back in as recently as January of this year, Justin Trudeau, the outgoing prime minister, the disgraced drama teacher, he was polling like 20 percentage points behind the conservative, Pierre Poilievre. And then, Trump is inaugurated in January, and he takes over and he starts making, a fuzz about the whole situation with the trade between Canada and the United States. And they found a way to spin it to blame Trump for all the issues that Canada has had over the past decade, including our economy that's struggling. Literally, Canadians bought that too. They bought into the fact that the Liberals blamed Trump for a decade of failure and terrible policies and laws. And there's just a lot of TDS out here. It's just a lot of Trump derangement syndrome in Canada, and they exploited it.
All right, thank you. Yes, don't mind the sound bites in the background. That's coming from Matt. So my thing is that obviously, down here in the States, we were begging for, Donald Trump to get back into the office, especially after the 4 years of a disastrous 4-year term of Joe Biden. So, for us, obviously, getting Donald Trump was a good thing. And yes, obviously he could be a bit strong in some of the words, and calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau, and all those types of things. But hearing how, from an American standpoint, hearing how that Donald Trump messed up the elections for Canadians, and this is really more towards the conservatives. And obviously, I'm assuming you're a conservative from watching the videos. I can almost guarantee you're on the conservative side. Yeah, kind of. If another person from another country can mess up another country's election, then the problem isn't with the person from the other country. The problem is with the country itself. Is that a fair assessment?
I would agree with that statement, my friend. I honestly, I don't blame Donald Trump for a second. The timing could have been better. Could have he thrown a bone to the conservatives by not getting involved and maybe giving them some time to like figure it out, and maybe they would have worked out better. And honestly, I think if the conservatives would have taken government, maybe things would have been better because they would have more aligned principle wise and ideology wise. However, I partially blame the conservatives too. Like, I don't think they were conservative enough. I think they were pandering to the wrong crowd. Yeah. A lot of people here in Alberta especially will have that opinion that Pierre Poilievre might have not been as conservative as he should have been, including some of the issues that Alberta has had historically. He said he wouldn't touch them just to appease Quebec. But how did that work out for him? And then it is indeed the fault of the people when you can be so easily fooled. When we've had 10 years where every single metric, Canada has just gotten worse. Crime is higher, groceries are more expensive, you cannot afford a house, immigration is out of control, and these people somehow convinced you that a president from a completely different country is to blame for all those issues that the Liberals created. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah, no, the way you put it, I mean, that's exactly, that's definitely the way to put it. But from our side, the way I'm looking at it, because I've been hearing a little bit about the Alberta separation even before the Canadian elections, and it was kind of my understanding that if Canada had elected Pierre Poilievre and went the conservative route, then perhaps would it have been a little bit harder for Alberta to be able to get referendum? In other words, electing Mark Carney, didn't that really propel even more this movement for Alberta separation? So technically, having Carney in office, doesn't that work better for the movement?
Yeah, honestly, Central Canada kind of did us a favor on that one. That's the other angle on that. Obviously, it's a bittersweet thing to realize, because definitely the Liberals winning after the terrible 10 years we've had has put a fire under Albertans that we haven't had before. We've never, the Premier herself will say, Danielle Smith, that she's never seen support for Alberta sovereignty in the mid-30s, ever. Even during the 80s, when there was a elected official who won on an independence platform. I think it peaked at low 20s, and now there's some polls showing as high as mid-40s. This is a very real situation in Alberta that's brewing, and there's a lot of people that are getting very organized, including, like I said before, the Alberta Prosperity Project. Pierre winning, I think, would have ended up kind of quelling the sentiment. It would have toned down the temperature in Alberta, because he would have thrown some things at us, kind of like Stephen Harper did. Not sure if you know who that was. That was the last conservative prime minister here in Canada. He was a conservative, and the Alberta independence movement wasn't nearly as high because he was pro-energy. He wasn't as pro-energy as he could have been, but he would placate the whole situation by giving Alberta certain things, certain concessions that Albertans wanted, and the economy was doing well, and life was, affordable here. So we didn't have the need to go after independence as much as we do. Like, a lot of people, this is for them is cents and dollars. Like, they realize that Alberta would be much better off and that we've been taking advantage for way too long.
Yeah. You mentioned Danielle Smith, who is like your basically like, Alberta's governor, and just speaking in, U.S. terms. But she's the premier of Alberta. What side do you think she's taking here? Because I've seen it that she's kind of playing the middle road here. She doesn't want to be too pro Alberta independence movement. And then she's also trying to talk about like having a free and, independent Alberta within Canada, or I can't remember the wording that she used. Where do you think she actually stands in all of this?
Yeah, in the independence movement, at least as far as I can tell, I try to stay in touch with that movement as much as I can, because that is really, at this point, politically all I care about. I just want to see Alberta become independent from Canada. I think that's the best thing that can happen to this province and this part of the world, for the West to free itself. I think she's been playing the middle. I think that's a decently accurate characterization of what she's doing. Certain people within the Alberta independence movement think that she's doing the right thing. She's trying to keep this grassroots, keep it a volunteer movement, a movement of the people. She doesn't want to politicize it. Others are saying that she's not brave enough, that she could take more precautions. She could install a firewall, is what people call it here, bring our pensions here from Ottawa. Alberta police, like Ontario and Quebec, have their own provincial police. Get the RCMP, which is our federal police, get them out of here and bring on Alberta police, which she has moved towards that. But she could do it like immediately through a mandate, because she's got a majority government. She could do many more things. Other people say that, well, she could do a lot less. She did just lower the threshold to make a referendum actually attainable. And she's also bringing our difficulties with Ottawa to the front. She's bringing it to the spotlight by talking about it as much as she can. So she's playing the middle, I would say.
Yeah. As far as like an independent Alberta, let's say, the referendum happens and Alberta gains their independence. What does an independent Alberta look like economically? What are some of the things that Alberta is going to be able to strive on by separating from Canada? And what are they going to be able to provide North America and even the world as an independent Alberta?
That's a really good question. Economically, there is a document that the leaders of the Alberta Prosperity Project produced. I appreciate the APP because, again, they are the most legitimate movement in Alberta promoting independence. And they created a fiscal budget, basically, would-be budget of what an independent Alberta would look like, removing Ottawa from our finances. And it looks pretty damn good. It's what I was telling you before. For a lot of people, this is cents and dollars. And they realize that Alberta would simply just be fiscally better in every way possible when you speak about the economy. We would be able to negotiate from a strong position, from a position of sovereignty. We would negotiate with Canada and the United States as an independent nation. And people say, well, you'd be a landlocked nation. Well, okay. Aren't there any landlocked nations that are successful? I can think of 2 or 3 really quickly. And you have Switzerland, you have Austria, you have Hungary. All of these nations are landlocked and they have really good economies. So when you have a province like Alberta that is blocked at every single try that it tries to do, every single thing that it tries to do to advance its economy, it's blocked by bureaucracy, by the federal government, by other provinces that are left-leaning, like British Columbia. How is it different from being a landlocked country if we're already a landlocked province, if that makes sense? So, but if we were a country, we at least can negotiate by ourselves. We don't have to get the federal government, who already don't want to see us prosper and don't want to see us get ahead, negotiating for us. We could also
Yeah.
negotiate directly with the United States, which that's another point right there.
Yeah, I was actually, yeah, that was going to be my next, I guess, follow up question is, that's where the United States comes in, because surely, with the rich land that Alberta has, with its oil reserves and everything that Alberta offers, you 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 better darn well know that Donald Trump is going to be like, he's going to be licking his lips and be like, man, I know we can make a deal, right? We can help you guys out. You guys can help us. And so the landlock issue, I think, is really just an argument from silence. It's not even going to be an issue for Alberta because again, I mean, there's going to be other means to be able to negotiate with the United States, and that'll open up, East and West Coast right there. If Alberta does nothing else but become its own independent nation, and that's assuming that Saskatchewan and the other provinces don't, immediately follow to join.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing too is, and we'll get into a little bit of the 51st state thing in a little bit, but I want to focus a little bit more on Canada per se. If Alberta does wind up getting the referendum and being able to declare independence by the will of the people, what do you think is going to happen with the rest of Western Canada?
The rest of Western Canada, obviously, this is all hypothetical because we don't know. We'll see what happens in spring of 2026 when the official referendum comes in and we vote our way out of this mess that is today's Canada. Western Canada specifically, Saskatchewan is very closely aligned with Alberta. It's like its little brother or little sibling. So if Alberta left, I think it'd be a domino effect. I don't know about Manitoba because they're a bit more left-leaning over there, although rural Manitoba is very conservative, but Winnipeg controls everything, the capital basically. And then British Columbia is very leftist too, the Vancouver area and the Lower Mainland. But what I can tell you right now is that if Alberta separated, the pressure for Saskatchewan to follow suit, either join Alberta in whatever Alberta has become, whether an independent nation or part of the United States, which is also being talked about, I think Saskatchewan would want to follow. It would be a domino effect there. What happens with British Columbia and Manitoba, that's a little bit trickier, especially with British Columbia. BC, because it's in the coast and all of that, they might even try to just separate from Canada themselves and be their own country as well. It will open a Pandora box for sure, or a can of worms. Like all hell will break loose because people think that it's Ontario holding Canada together. No, it's Alberta's money. If Alberta takes the amount of money that it sends to other provinces as a bribe, including Quebec, this country falls apart.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. There's in Canada, there's like subsidies, or I mean, help me out a little bit. Obviously, it's you're just my neighbor to the north, and I'm not too in tune, and I'm trying to be, but within Canada, there's some kind of like subsidies that each province pays to Ottawa, and I think they call them. Help me out here.
Equalization.
Equalization payments. Yeah. So tell us a little bit how that works, how Alberta's involved in that, and what that looks like for an Albertan. And tell us about that.
Yeah, man, it's the Soviet socialist dream just north of the 49th parallel, guys. You have what they call have-not provinces, which are the biggest culprit of all of these is Quebec. The Frenchies out east that we Albertans have really no love lost for. It's like a rivalry there. Canada, what they do is that they take money from those provinces like Alberta that have a higher GDP production, and then they redistribute it, equalization, to equalize, make things equal, and keep the same standard of living all over the country. And on paper, that sounds great. But you know that the thing with socialism, right? Like at some point you run out of other people's money, right? So to add insult to injury, for Alberta specifically is the fact that those same provinces that are the biggest recipients of funds coming from Alberta and its energy industry are the biggest opponents and the most pronounced opponents of the development of said industry. That is the irony that I don't tire from talking about every single day on my channel, is the fact that Quebec takes to the tune of $15 billion from Alberta in equalization payments every year. So you imagine a pipeline, but of cash, literally cash, billions of dollars from Alberta to Quebec every single year, but they will not allow even a liquefied natural gas pipeline from Alberta through Quebec to the East Coast for us to continue to produce that money that they so enjoy to pay for their socialist programs. Then you have a bunch of
Yeah,
others in the Maritimes, like the little ones in the East Coast. They also consume some of that, but the biggest culprit is really Quebec.
it sounds very hypocritical. If they like your money, but they don't want you to make the money. Um, now, uh, as far as Canada's response, or should I say Ottawa's response, I know obviously the movement is definitely gaining speed. It's gaining ground. People are talking about it all throughout Alberta and even Western Canada, even Canada, to be fair. But what is some of the things that you guys are hearing from Ottawa to, other than that one guy that wants to put in that his own little referendum or whatever? Like, what are some things that maybe is coming in from like Ottawa, like Mark Carney, or from some of the others that are trying to stop you guys?
Yeah, so Mark Carney finds himself in a very uncomfortable position. He doesn't want to give credence or credibility to the movement,
He's doing
but he
that
can't help
often, actually. He's
it.
finding himself in awkward positions.
Yes, but exactly. But he can't help it because it's inevitable. The movement has taken a life of its own and it's everywhere. And then his buddies in the mainstream media, which, by the way, you know what Donald Trump just recently did, which he removed funding from public broadcasting, PBS, and all those guys?
Yeah, yeah.
Canada is that on steroid. We have literally a propaganda arm of the liberal government called the CBC, and then all the other minions, CTV, Global News, and all that. They all are paid by the liberal government. You can literally look this up right now and put liberal government media bailout, and they give billions. And Mark Carney literally just said that he would increase the amount of funding that the CBC gets every year, and put it into law so that if a conservative, God forbid, wins the next election, they can't just take the funding from the CBC. And this is in light of the fact that Pierre Poilievre threatened to stop funding public broadcasting because they've become propaganda. The point that I'm trying to make with that is the fact that the news, they have been undermining it, underestimating it, attacking it, smearing the Alberta independence movement, but they can't stop talking about it. You put Alberta independence, and every single day you see mainstream media talking about it. They're now trying to give a lot more attention to this guy, the has-been politician who popped out of nowhere, and saying that he's getting a ton of support and all of this, but they're still talking about Alberta independence because they know, they're worried, and they don't even want it to get to a referendum. Tell me you're scared when you don't even want your opponent to show up in the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, it's they obviously any media is good media, right? Even if it's bad, even if it's a smear, because what are you doing is that you're bringing it out there, and people have minds of their own. They can think for themselves. If CBC is out there and they're talking about Alberta separation, and let's just say there's this, somebody in Alberta that hasn't heard much about the Alberta separation, and now they're like, what? We're trying to
Oh yeah.
separate? That would be a good idea, right? And they're talking to their wife, or they're talking to their friends. They're like, man, that's a good idea, actually. Like, why are they telling us that's a bad idea, right? And so they'll smear it, but all they're doing is really eventually just going to hurt themselves. So, if it was me, in Alberta, I would welcome any kind of publicity, whether it's negative or positive. Obviously, we want positive publicity. We want to. I'm sure you guys want to properly educate Albertans, to make the best decision for Albertans, and so that's why you do what you do. right? That's why you're putting out the videos, you and some of these other guys. APP, I follow a little bit about some of the stuff that they do as well. I think the guy's name is, one of the guys' name is Jeffrey Rath. I think that is right. He's one of the attorneys. So let's say hypothetically Alberta, gets to separate or become independent from Canada. What one of the first steps I would think would be to have a leader, somebody who's leading this new party. Would that be Danielle Smith, or do you think that would be somebody else?
There's the hypothetical and there's the law, and the law doesn't say really anything about that. How do I know? Because like you mentioned, Jeffrey Rath, he's a constitutional lawyer. Like, this is literally what the guy does. It's constitutional law. And what they've talked about at the APP is that once the mandate is given through referendum, there's something called the Clarity Act, and the parties, including the federal government, Alberta itself, and the provinces, have a duty to negotiate. It's not a matter of, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Do we want to even? Do we want to entertain them? No, at this point, they have to negotiate. Oh, and the indigenous too, the Canadian Indians also, First Nations also have to be
First
consulted.
Nations, yeah.
Yes, so these would be the four parties. It's all other provinces, the federal government, the First Nations, natives, and then the Alberta itself. But it's not a will they, might they. No, it's they have to negotiate. At that point, what I believe happens is that Danielle Smith is no longer coming at it from, if it's her, by the way, because we don't know. Again, this is uncharted territory. It's never happened before.
Right.
Not in Canada. I don't even think it's happened in North America, where there's a secession movement that succeeds, right? So Danielle Smith, if it was her, wouldn't be negotiating in the capacity of premier anymore. I believe she'd be negotiating in the capacity of the leader of this new would-be nation. And we would have to reconfederate. If we wanted to be a part of Canada, we would have to renegotiate re-entering. The Constitution would have to be open. I just don't see how Albertans get that far and then fall for Canada again. I think we would probably just go our own way.
Yeah. That brings up the question. Obviously, we've heard a lot about 51st state this, 51st state Canada, and, Donald Trump's ambitions to, inquire Canada, which I don't think from a conservative standpoint, acquiring all of Canada is the wisest move for us. But obviously from, conservative standpoint, for me, being a conservative and being Christian and obviously loving my country, I'm actually rooting for Alberta's independence, but I would think that it would be really cool for Alberta itself to possibly become the 51st state. What is your take on the Alberta situation? Would you prefer complete independence, or are you hoping for a 51st state? Where do you kind of lean in all that?
Well, personally, I'm just open-minded. I believe, as a base level, that Alberta, for one, culturally and even geographically, just aligns better with the United States. You look at the culture of to Albertans today, and even for the past 100 years, we definitely have a lot more in common with people in Montana, Idaho, Texas. A good 25% of the ranchers, when Alberta was being settled, came from Oklahoma, Texas, and Montana. So historically, there's that connection there. But the way I view it is I'm open-minded. We definitely need to probably go at the Texas way first. I don't mean the violence part. I mean becoming a country first. We need to see how that goes. We need to see how we do, whether we can stand on our own 2 feet. But what I can say is also that is something that would likely be put to a vote once Alberta gets to that point. If there's a large enough amount of the population of the new Alberta citizens, if you will, that want to become a part of the United States, well, there's probably going to be some sort of negotiation. Would I prefer being part of the United States as opposed to staying in the situation that Alberta's in today? Yes. But I also want to find out what an independent nation of Alberta looks like.
Yeah. No, that's good. I have heard some of the Canadians talk a little bit about, like, if they get a divorce from Canada, not to go on the rebound, too quickly with, with the United States and stuff like that. Although I think it's a little bit different than obviously a marriage, but I can definitely see the analogy there. Obviously, I don't know, Matt, are you still back there, Matt?
I'm here. I'm here.
Obviously, okay.
Struggling with Engrok.
That's okay.
I'm here.
So, obviously, with the 51st state jargon that's out there, we are hoping. I think most Americans are actually rooting for Alberta, number one, for independence. But I think there's a little bit in us that obviously would like to see America actually grow with more conservatives. I think it would definitely put the conservatives in a stronger situation. We would grow as a nation, just at the snap of a finger in a GDP sense, with how rich Alberta actually is. And I think that's what people don't realize, is how rich Alberta actually could be if you guys were able to grow at your full potential. And somebody like a Donald Trump would definitely be somebody, that would be rooting you guys on and helping you guys within that. But obviously, we're not going to have Trump forever, right? And so I do understand, that kind of like being reserved. Well, they have Trump now, but they're not going to have Trump forever, right? Do we really want to join them? Maybe we should do it by ourselves first and try it out that way. But I think inevitably, I think you guys are going to be a 51st state, man. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But you know what, man? I think at the end of the day, we are really just rooting for Alberta. We're rooting for Alberta's prosperity because we know that you guys are tied down due to Ottawa's restrictions. The carbon tax that is, kind of killing your guys' industry and stuff like that. So, when is the referendum going to happen? Is it going to happen? Do you guys have insurers? How's that working?
Well, it's before the courts now. I don't know if you heard, but the Elections Alberta, the bureaucrats in there decided to send it for further analysis of its constitutionality. Basically adding red tape, creating some sort of a delay tactic to make things, to have the anti-independence one take the spotlight. We'll see how that works. But yeah, it's before the courts now. Elections Alberta, APP deposited into Elections Alberta, and the bureaucrat, the top guy, sent it before a judge. That's already in the process. There's going to be hearings. The lawyers from the APP are going to be making the case that it is constitutional. It actually should take precedent over the other one because it's an actual constitutional question as opposed to a policy question. We're still aiming for spring of 2026 to get that referendum going.
If for whatever reason, if let's say the courts say no, this is not good or whatever, they try to forbid you guys, would you then prefer just being annexed by the United States?
That's an interesting question there. Here's what I'll add: the premier knows better. The premier of Alberta knows better, man. She knows that 2/3, 66% of her base are pro-independence. That's a powerful movement. When you have 66% of the people who put you in power pushing for an outcome, she actually made statements. Her Minister of Justice and herself came out and said that the judge, that Elections Alberta shouldn't be delaying the will of the people, that they should just let the referendum go through as it should. She got into
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff for saying that, but that tells you the amount of pressure that is under her. I believe she also supports it. She might be using it as a bargaining chip because she says a lot about, well, we should stay within Canada but become more independent, kind of like Quebec. So she may be using it for that purpose, and I suppose more power to her, because if she can get anything that helps Alberta become more sovereign, whether it's within Canada or not, if it becomes more sovereign in the meantime, at least we're moving towards the right direction, right? But yeah, man, she's got a lot of pressure under her, and people like pushing her towards moving for independence.
Yeah, I think if it was me, if I was in, let's say your shoes, I would want her to be like very definitive on her stance, not necessarily playing the middle part. Just so this way I would know where she stands. You know what I mean? But I do also understand her position as a politician. Number one, that's obviously a part of Canada, and so she does have to, I guess, play her chips very carefully in all of that. So I do get it, but I'm sure you would like to see her, make a choice one way or another, at least showing, which way she stands one way or another.
Oh yeah, man.
Let me interject.
Oh, yeah.
Let me interject real quick, because that's what I'm sort of interested in. I like to know what's the you said 60% of her base is supporting of separation, annexing, whatever it's called, so on and so forth. So, like, real world in terms of Alberta population, what do those numbers dissolve into? What does it look like when you talk about when you go to Starbucks, you're in the street? Is this like a realistic thing in terms of random conversations and random chatter that's happening in the real world?
Yeah, man, that's a very valid question. So yeah, 2/3 of her, because they did a poll recently. 2/3 of her base support Alberta independence, but that doesn't mean 2/3 of Albertans. There's been polling, which tells us kind of where we're at, more or less. The lowest polling has shown that 1/3 of Albertans, that's 33%. And mind you, this pollster, because not all polls are created equal, right? You know that a lot of them come with their own biases. So
100%.
This pollster is left-leaning, heavy left-leaning, and he put it at 33%, unprecedented. It's never gone up that high. And then a more centrist to right-leaning pollster had it mid-40s. I'm talking 45, I think. Don't quote me exactly, but mid-40s, 43, between 43 and 45, which, again, this is a real number. And obviously the cities is a bit more difficult because cities tend to be more left-leaning, but you go to rural Alberta and a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are putting down those maple leaves and raising Alberta flags. And a lot of Albertans feel like there's just no hope here. So you can hear it at the doors, mostly in rural and the suburbs. The cities, not so much. And that's what we're working towards, is to educate people in the cities.
Okay, so to follow up on that, let me ask another question. So, the generic line is that when Trump started pulling all this language, this very fluffy language about coming into the country and becoming the 51st state, the idea was that, hey, people in Canada don't want to hear that jazz. We were doing good with this whole idea thing until you started saying all that insanity. How did you see that impact your niche over there in terms of your understanding for the willingness of people to want to succeed, for example? And did that impact? Did you see people say, no, I was down for it now, but now that guy opened his mouth, I'm done. Go Canada.
Yeah. He's a polarizing guy. There's definitely both reactions, because there's people who are conservative in Alberta who don't like Trump, especially the older people. I find that the younger conservatives are all over Trump and appreciate what he's doing for his country and wish we had that for ourselves. I'm talking the population that is 40 and under. But then you have people that are conservative but not Trump conservative, right? More like what you guys would call like rhinos, or more like like Ted Cruz conservative, not so much MAGA conservative, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have those guys, but then we honestly are emboldened by seeing the support from Americans, not just your president, but Americans in general. There are so many Americans talking about this. It just everyday people saying we support you, whether you choose to go and become the 51st state, a territory, or you go on your own. We understand what's happening to you, and I think it's the American spirit. Your history back in 1776, you guys were basically a colony of what we are a colony of today. It's taxation without representation all over again. So I think you guys see that and see your history kind of repeating itself with Alberta. So yeah, honestly, Trump is polarizing. Some people, and I would say in independence, the majority of people see Trump as an ally. I would dare say, and don't quote me on this, I'm not a pollster, but out of 10 people I talk to, 7 are like, I'm super glad to see Americans and their president support Alberta independence.
And how did you get into this? Like, were you an activist in some sort of other field, or like, how did you all of a sudden make this your dominant focus?
I was nothing like that, man. I was just a father of 5 children, married, just basically hoping that the conservatives would win to stop the bleeding. That's really what it was, man. And don't confuse the fact that, like, oh, I was conservative, like now that we lost, we want to separate. That's not what it was. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back, man, for so many of us. Because then you have the leftists on the other side say, well, you guys are just a bunch of sore losers. You lose, you just take it in the chin, and you keep. That's not what it is. And then the more I understood the history of Alberta's grievances not being heard by Ottawa, the more angry I got, and the more indignant, and just like, okay, it's time to go. And I'm happy to see that I'm not the only one who was thinking that way. So what happens is, I was hoping that the conservatives would win, like stop that bleeding, see if things will get better. Canada would freaking just, start acting like a legitimate country and not this crazy dystopia that we have today. But that didn't happen. Central Canada and Eastern Canada showed us in the West yet again that they will not do anything in support of Western Canada, that they'll always go against whatever our principles are. 99%, no, 95% of Alberta voted conservative. And the East voted heavily. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Here it's blue, like conservative is blue. It's the opposite of you guys. You guys, Democrats is blue. Here, conservative is blue. And 95% of Alberta, you look at our map, it's like 2 ridings that went to anything other than conservative. I think 2 or 3 of, like, I think 37 ridings. So it was like a good 90+% went conservative.
Wow.
So I had it, man. I realized that many other people were feeling that way. So I just started talking about it. I just started putting it on YouTube. My wife was like, just put it out there because I'm kind of tired of hearing it, and I just started putting it on YouTube.
She said, talk to other people. Don't talk to me about it anymore.
Yeah, and I don't blame her, right? Like, I talk to her. I just complain all the time and getting worked up. Like, oh my God, Alberta should just go its own way. I'm a blue collar guy out here in Alberta. I work with my hands, and I work in transportation and stuff.
PJ,
like
I don't want to hear about the Alberta. Go talk to the internet.
Yeah, man. I just started talking, putting together like voiceovers because I didn't want to put my face out there because I'm still employed, right? But I realized that my employer is a cool guy. He's a conservative guy himself, so I got to pay those bills, right? Like, I didn't want to risk it. Then I also was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put my face out there. People want to see the face behind the voice, so.
And here's a tip, I back in the day when I used to work with Alex Jones, when I stopped working there, I had to use my middle name. So you can just make your middle name become your first name. You got a whole new life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went initials.
I
just went initials here.
Okay. Well, Alex cool. Is like, for the whole time we've been doing the show, like every time, like Alex is really into all this Alberta separation stuff, or just in general, the hope that Canada will become a 51st state. And I'm over here like a pessimist, being like, "Are you retarded? It's like, you really think it's going to happen? And, so I have like a cliche character based on my opinion. I want it to happen, but am I not correct that, like, over here in the U.S., just to let you in, we'd have to have a 2/3 of all the states essentially vote, similar to like a constitutional amendment. I don't really know what the process would be. But just in my, because I'm only smart because of AI nowadays, but when I AI'd it, I think it was telling me that there was a dominant percentage of the provinces would also have to vote to allow you out of the union. Is that not correct, or can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah, so like I said before, it's never been done before, so it's uncharted territory. But what the law says, which is called the Clarity Act, and they created that law because Quebec came so close, right? So they had to create a law like, okay, what if these people got to that 50% plus one vote, right? What would have happened? So they created some sort of steps or mechanism to see how they would deal with a province separating. And Canada is really the only, I believe, country in the world that allows this, like a portion of their country to legally separate from the rest of the country. Yeah, they would have to enter into negotiations. That's what the law says. Albertans vote as a majority to separate from Canada. Canada would have to negotiate. It doesn't say that they could just say no. We would have to come to terms on what does it look like, because Albertans are not just going to sit there. We showed that we're ready to go. And a big difference maker, and I think Dr. Dennis Modry talked about this in one of his live town halls, is that at that point, if there's a stalemate, what makes Alberta a nation is international recognition. So if you have any major country, and I would dare say a little neighbor to the south, which is the most powerful country on earth, indicating what Canada just indicated for Palestine, that they're going to recognize it as a state, a two-state solution, if you will, then we have all the chips. And like Trump would say, we have all the cards. They have no cards. If the USA says we're going to recognize their independence, they have no cards.
It's over at that point.
And I'm gonna let Alex get back to it. But is it? I was just on the pickleball courts over here because I play pickleball every day. I'm a pickleball psychopath. And anyhow, I was having a conversation with this lady, and she ended up being from Alberta. Because our pastor is from Toronto. We feel like honorary Canadians. Our first love was over there. And anyhow, okay, so she's like, well, we're the ones that have all the money. We're the ones that have all the wealth. We've got all the oil. Right? So is that accurate that Alberta is seen as the wealthier side of Canada?
I don't know if it's seen, but it factually is. We have the third largest oil reserves in the world. It's, I think, Venezuela, then the Saudis, and then Alberta. Our oil is a combination of the heavy stuff and then the super thick tar, what they call the tar sands, but it's deposits confirmed. It's the third largest in the world. It's crazy. And then we have a whole lot of natural gas. Then we have critical minerals, more so on the Saskatchewan side, but we also have uranium and stuff like that. We have a bunch of coal, bunch of stuff. And then our population is so young compared to the rest of Canada. Canada has a really high level of people that are on the third age, right? Like seniors and stuff. So you combine that, and we have the highest GDP, like GDP per capita in all of Canada, and it's not even close. Obviously, Ontario, being the biggest population, has the largest GDP, but per capita, per person, Alberta is actually the highest by far. I think Mississippi passed Ontario not long ago in wealth, like GDP per capita, and Alberta is like way up there with, I think with Texas and so on and so forth, like way up there with Texas.
Wow,
per capita.
Obviously. Yeah, and so I know you got to get going soon, but you brought up a really good point. Mark Carney recently messed up some of the trading between the trade agreement between Alberta, Canada, and the United States with his remarks about possibly, I guess, acknowledging Palestine as a state. right? An independent country, which is a terrorist state, right? Everybody knows it's a terrorist state. It's a terrorist organization. It's ran by them. And yet he's willing to recognize them as a state. And there comes the conundrum that he probably just put himself in. That possibly next year, Alberta declares its independence through the referendum. And now Mark Carney is going to be stuck in a pickle where he's willing to recognize a terrorist organization as a state. He's going to have to, if he's going to be consistent, or unless he's going to be a hypocrite, you know, he's going to have to acknowledge Alberta as a state, you know. And so I just find that humorous almost. But I definitely see the pickle that he's putting himself into. But I like what you said, is that Donald Trump is the wild card in all of this, right? If Alberta gets a 50% plus one, the only thing that would stop it from becoming its own nation would be the nobody else recognizing it, and mainly it would be Donald Trump. That would be the only thing that would stop it, because if you don't get the recognition from the South, right, from the United States, then it's going to be an uphill battle from there to obtain independence. But I think the stars are aligning for you guys in Alberta. I think, again, I think it started with Mark Carney winning, Pierre Poilievre. It wasn't what started the separation, but like you said, I like what you said. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? And I think when the referendum happens, I really am rooting for you guys, and I really think you guys are going to obtain independence. And I think we're probably going to be one of the first to actually recognize you as your own independent country, and that's what we're rooting for, PJ. PJ, again, I know you got to go. Really quick, PJ, tell us how we can follow you, how we can find you.
All right, well, mostly YouTube. PJ the Belt on YouTube. I just recently started a Twitter. You can find me there too, at PJ the Belt. Simple as that, at PJ the Belt. I'm trying to post on there as much as possible. I wasn't super active on Twitter prior to this. I was mostly YouTube. So YouTube and Twitter for now. And I'll keep calling it Twitter, man. It's just that whole X thing is annoying.
Yeah. Well, I think they still call it tweets. So,
yeah,
whatever that means.
What's the point?
Yeah. Well, PJ, hey, man, it's been a pleasure. Again, I just want to thank you for joining us here on Faith and Nation. And for you guys that are watching, please be sure to follow at PJ the Belt. You should be able to click right there in the description, in the YouTube description, and it should send you right straight to his channel. Be sure to follow him on YouTube. PJ, thank you, man. God bless you. And we'll be in touch, man. I'll continue following you and touch base again.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, PJ. Have a good one.
Later.
You too.
Alrighty, Alex.
All right. Well, that was PJ the Belt. Something, again, as I mentioned before, Alberta separation. Be sure to follow him on YouTube. He's got some really good content that he's putting out all day now. He's always putting out new videos. And so, again, just be sure to follow him. He's always got some good information. All right. So, on to our regularly scheduled program. We've got some topics for you guys. We've got some things that have been coming in. Let me see here. Let me go to the control panel. So we've got a few discussions to talk about. We've got some persecutions in Africa. We are going to be talking about more Epstein discussion, but it's going to be a little bit of a different angle here. We're going to be talking about Epstein's Satanism. We will be discussing Texas House of Representatives. they are voting and have just voted to arrest or at least issue arrest warrants for House Democrats. We are going to talk a little bit about Macron's wife and the interview between Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. We will be touching on Jim Brewer. And of course, we do have some Gaza discussions to get into. But first, we've got some things coming in from the Congo, from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. There has been some major persecutions coming out there. It says that there was over 40 Christians that were killed in a church gathering, and it was done by, you've guessed it, it was done by some ISIS, the ISIS organization, which is really just an Islamic radical Islam. I don't know. Do we call it radical Islam? That's my question. Like, is it? I mean, is that fair to say that Islam that kills Christians, is that really radical, or is that really what Islam actually teaches? You know, I mean, this stuff has to get out there. I mean, you don't see it much in the mainstream media. You don't hear about Christians being persecuted in the mainstream media. And you have to ask yourselves why. You know, why do we not hear about the Christians that are being persecuted in other countries? Why don't we hear much about it in Syria, right? From Al-Sahara, I think that's his name, right? The guy that changes his name all the time. Why are we not hearing about this? And, you know, why are we... We're overloaded.
We're too busy talking about Epstein and Trump and everything else, and our poor little attention spans that used to be able to handle at least, you know, a 2.5 hour movie. You know, we can't even handle 2 minutes of just sitting there remaining idle. So we're just tossed to and fro, going from one thing to the next. And
more than 40 worshippers killed after an attack on a church in Africa. An ISIS-linked group has claimed responsibility for this, and a witness has now come forward and spoken to Fox. Senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott has this horrifying story for us. So, Greg, what exactly did the witness say?
Sandra, it was an unbelievable massacre. In the words of the eyewitness to Fox, we don't understand why this is all. Some 43 people killed in cold blood by machete and gun-wielding rebels of the Islamic State-affiliated ADF outfit at a prayer vigil in a small town on the eastern border of Congo. Buildings there were also torched. The ugly toll included 15 men, 19 women, and 9 children. Their bodies found strewn around the area. Other children were abducted. The eyewitness added to Fox News Digital, they kill those that met in the church hall. Those who tried to flee were caught and killed in the compound and running towards the road. People were sad.
Between a neighboring country, and you know, they had a lot of a war that had been going on for quite some time, and this, you know, this comes as the Trump administration is trying to make a minerals deal with the Congo. But as far as the persecution is concerned, I mean, I think what's happening really is that what happens is when there's...
Have you heard the good...
Come on, Matt.
Well,
help me out. Help a brother out, bro.
You gotta keep an eye on the timers too.
Yes.
It forced you.
No, let me just say this. I think it's unfortunate, though, that the Christians that are being persecuted, you don't hear much about in the news. And I think it's because, you know, obviously there's a satanic agenda. Christians being persecuted is the largest persecuted people, you know, on earth. And I think it's going to continue, unfortunately, and the mainstream media is going to continue not to cover it. And so, you know, we're going to try to do our best to bring this stuff to light, but we also have to remember to pray for our brothers and sisters, that you know, that God gives them courage, that God gives them strength to endure persecution, would not deny him in the very hour of trial. And so my heart goes out to those victims and the families of the victims. And it's just a really big reminder for me to continue praying for the persecuted church all over the world. And so, that's all I got about that one.
Amen. All right. Well, let's reveal the great reveal.
Trump's gonna get it done. He'll release the Epstein files on day one. The libs will cry when those names are exposed. Trump's gonna see that justice is imposed. What's that? Oh no, he needs a few months. He wants a case airtight, no bumps. His AG Pam Bondi says files on her desk, and MAGA's got binders they can attest. He's releasing the files to catch all the pedophiles. Never met Epstein or touched any teen. He's draining the swamp with Epstein's name off screen.
All right. That's a nice one.
That's your deal. Yeah, that's your thing, Matt.
Yes, indeedy. Well, the way or definitely is an option. It could happen. He's going to be draining the swamp and catching the pedophiles. What's happened is I caught a video here of Epstein's niece, Anya Wick, and over the years, whenever these whistleblowers come out, whether it's like Kathy O'Brien, who was talking about Bill Clinton and Dick Cheney, having been a sex slave, it's really hard to believe what they're saying is true. And remember that when the John Todd tapes came out in the early 90s, exposing all of the Satanism, and Fritz Springmeier rather, from the bloodlines of the Illuminati. We now are facing a situation here where his niece is, in no uncertain terms, indicating that was a satanic family. It's an hour-and-a-half interview, and obviously we can't play the whole thing for you. So we're just going to get started. Let's go right into it, and let's see what Epstein's niece has to say regarding who Epstein really was.
I am Jeff Epstein's niece. But Bill was on the flight logs because he went to the island. He also went to many, many other places where me and other children were present. With my experiences, I believe he wanted to talk more about the other parties involved. And I know he didn't kill himself. I'm not sure whether they let him go and get plastic surgery and flee the country, or if they did kill him. But I do believe he was a pawn, and that his story blew up in the media to keep people from looking beyond him. If Jeffrey was the one villain in charge of it, then, he's dead, it's all over, everything's good now. MK Ultra is the practice of creating slaves with the severed memory, many of whom were my siblings, who I only got to see at family reunions, who I would rush home from school to watch on TV. I moved back to New York City because my ex-husband had a scheme to try to allow me to speak about some of this in court, since court testimony can be used as evidence to potentially open up a criminal case. But when I got to the hearing, I was only allowed to say my name and address, and the judge refused to let me speak beyond that. When we had gone to the FBI a couple years ago, they interviewed my father and said, oh, he said nothing happened, so we're going to close this case. If every successful politician is born into this world, they have vested interest in keeping it quiet. The cult of Baal, B-A-L. My family masqueraded themselves as Jewish publicly, but behind closed doors, you know, at Passover dinners, when I was drugged, would admit, we are Satanists.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning of that interview, which I would love to get into in depth. But to give you a little taste of what it is we're discussing, you know, James O'Keefe, when he got access into Epstein Island, inside the temple, inside the house and the residences over there on the island, we're looking at some instructions that were depicted on the white wall, and we're looking at some really weird pictures, and of course we get an inside view of the temple and what was taking place over there. There's a lot of looming questions, but when someone comes onto the scene saying that, you know, she was a child sex slave, I know that we have the hesitancy to say, how am I ever going to validate this lady's actually telling the truth, you know? And the internet will tell you that you got to have this supernatural gift of discernment that's given to you by the Holy Spirit to know what's up or down to begin with.
So one thing that's missing from the coverage of the Jeffrey Epstein...
I can't say that, you know, I claim to have that supernatural gift of discernment, but in me watching this entire episode, I believe her. And that definitely means that, you know, the reason why we wanted the Epstein files to be released in the first place is because we're trying to get our country back. We're trying to not just move on with the status quo of people that's thinking that, hey, everything is all about greed and corruption. Everybody gets greed. Everybody gets corruption. They could totally understand of how they might get a little bit carried away, you know, with sexual proclivities and stuff, or become a sex addict, or get carried away with making millions and millions of dollars and lose their morals in the progress. But nobody can understand what Satanists do, especially when involving human sacrifice, MK Ultra, and satanic ritual abuse. This is something that the entire country would align themselves, whether they believe in God or not, against this level of evil. And we really do have to get to the bottom of it here. Her interview does basically illuminate that she thinks, as much as Jeffrey Epstein was satanic of nature, that the distraction that we're now going through now is just that, a distraction to keep us from looking at any of the other names and all the occults and all the sex parties and everything that ties this rabbit hole together into one giant conclusion. So,
yeah, so she actually said, from what the clip that we watched, and I haven't seen any of this. And for our audience and for our viewers, if you guys would like to see us do a little bit more of like a commentary on that video, like a little bit of a longer commentary, we can definitely do that. Let us know in the comments section if that's something that you guys would like to see. But she said something about Baal, right? That they would have Baal, like worship Baal or something, or I can't remember, but I saw little Baal statues or whatever. And she said that they were Satanists, and that totally makes sense because that's exactly who Baal is. You know, in Scripture, it is the evil one, and it's very intriguing. And you know, obviously, I don't put it past them. You know, she said that they would have their Passover services, but behind closed doors, they were Satanists. You know, it definitely. Again, I'm not surprised by it. You know, if this being true, I'd like to maybe, you know, do that sit down and we can watch it, Brother Matt, and maybe do a commentary on it. But it definitely doesn't surprise me, and I'm actually a little bit more intrigued. Obviously, I'm not intrigued because I like to see stuff about this per se. However, I think that it is important to expose the darkness, right? The Bible talks about that. The Bible, says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. So I think that would be good if maybe we can do that. If maybe that's something that they want to watch, we can do that. So
sure. I'm just fixing the Faith to Nation stream. It seems that we were offline on Faith to Nation after those connectivity issues, so that should be popping back up over there.
We
let's
did
move,
get the whole.
Let's move to the next
stream.
cut here.
Okay.
So one thing that's missing from the coverage of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal is the voices of people who served in the Metropolitan Correctional Center with him or near the time that he did, where he met his end. And so to try to rectify that, we're joined now by journalist, activist, and former MCC inmate, Martin Gottesfeld. Marty, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
So to set the stage here, can you talk about the time that you served inside the MCC and how that relates to Jeffrey Epstein's time there?
Okay, so I was there from November 2016 to early February 2017. Epstein died there about 2.5 years after I left. But at the time I arrived at MCC, Epstein had not yet been there. El Chapo had not yet been held there. And the facility was really kind of flying under the radar. People really weren't aware of it, even though that attorneys and prisoners had been active trying to reform the facility for a long time. The facility was already dilapidated. The staff were already out of control. Disaster was very clearly on the horizon. Anyone could see it. And at the time, I was a contributor for HuffPost, and you were my editor there, and we published quite a bit about the facility before it rose to national prominence. And so we were really kind of like the early warning system that something was very likely to happen here.
All right, and so one of Epstein's, tell us about your connection to one of Epstein's cellmates.
So Epstein's, I understand it was Epstein's first cellmate, Nick Tartaglione. I was in the SHU on G tier, so the SHU's got like different halls. They're called tiers, where you can have cells, right? And like G tier in that SHU is like the most elite. It's where the high profile guys tend to go. And so I was already on G tier when Tartaglione came in, like was arrested fresh off the street, had never seen a jail cell from the inside before. He was a cop, so he had seen lockup, but had never actually experienced it for himself. And then I understand that Nick was not Epstein's cellmate at the time of the death. And I think that's important to underscore here.
Right.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about the way that the cameras work?
I can tell you a lot.
And we have this on A5, by the way. We can loop this. This is the video that Pam Bondi released. And Marty, you've certainly seen this by now. It's obviously, as Wired has said, spliced together. It's missing a second, and now people are actually saying, Ryan, 3 seconds. So
3 minutes.
3 minutes. I'm sorry.
And they tried to explain away 1 minute as like a nightly systems reboot, but then there's apparently 2 other minutes. I should add, I've not double checked the digital forensics on this myself. One thing, given my background, the government alleges I'm a hacker with Anonymous and that I single-handedly orchestrated one of the largest cyber attacks the government had ever seen. So I just have to say I've not double-checked the digital forensics on this. So I'm going off of what Wired wrote. Yeah. To my understanding, there's no meaningful contradiction. Like no one's come forward with an alternative theory or whatever. But I can't personally vouch for the digital forensics on the files. But I mean, that's a view from another tier. And so the tiers are stacked like one on top of another, and they're in different like arms shooting off from the main area in the SHU. And you can see the officers station there from visible from that tier. But obviously there's no cell doors, right? And so this doesn't really make a lot of sense. The video is not particularly useful for anything. And in that SHU, just so you guys know, because this is something that's not been covered, there's a camera in every cell. And on G tier, there's 2 cameras in every cell. And the problem is that guys cover them up, right? Like you're trying to use the bathroom. There's a camera pointing at you. Like, what are you going to do? You cover the camera up, right? And so pretty much at any given time in the occupied cell in that shoe, the camera's covered. Now, that's against policy, but the facility, I mean, what are they going to do? Send a team to every single cell every single day to uncover these cameras? Because the guys will just cover them back up again. You also, though, expect that they would have cameras in the hallway, that we would have a camera that's facing Epstein's cell door, right? And there's no explanation given for why that tape is missing or, you know, what happened to that camera. And they're trying to say the cameras weren't working, the DVR system had problems with the hard drives, all this. Okay, in the floor above that shoe is the 10 South Special Administrative Measures Unit. Okay, this is national security stuff. This is like where the 9/11 guys were held. These are the guys who don't even get attorney-client privilege. Even their attorney-client meetings, their visits with their attorney are listened in on by DOJ. Right, this is the highest of high security, and they're saying that, you know, the floor right below it that someone could use to access the 10 South unit had no working cameras, or the drives were bad. You know, Epstein died a month, 2 months after El Chapo left. It strikes me as very unlikely the cameras would be allowed to get into that position, and very scary if in fact they were.
So,
okay. All right.
What's your take on all this?
Well, honestly, I was in the background trying to fix everything that was going wrong. I just feel like it's more pointing us into the situation that we kind of unfortunately keep beating the drums of this whole Epstein situation, because nothing's making sense, man. You can't lie to us about you know, we're tech people and saying, oh, it's 1990s camera situation, every minute is deleted every single night, you know. And then meanwhile, we just got more and more details coming out that says you literally just lied, you know. So what are you guys hiding? I don't know. I don't know where to go. But, you know, we can't let the Epstein thing drop. It's just unfortunate.
No, we got to take Dan Bongino's advice and not let this thing go, right? I mean, isn't that what he said before, you know, last year, I think it was, he said that, or 2 years ago? We can't let this thing go. It's too big.
You know, the minute that I actually see the indictments take place, you know, on big name people like Obama or Clinton, my trust will be reestablished a little bit. We need to see some forward momentum, because they've, I don't know, intentionally or unintentionally, whatever they did, they messed this whole situation up, and they just tore all the trust out of us. And there's just so many inconsistencies with the story. To have another one here being the videotape and seeing that it was edited by Photoshop, the metadata being on it, and then now knowing that that whole minute fiasco was just a joke, they're able to retrieve the footage. You know, there's an unending carcass of material that just really brings all of this into question. And someone like myself, you know, when I'm hearing his niece saying that Epstein was satanic, that's the stuff I wanted. That's what I was like, duh. You know, that's what's happening here behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, of course he's satanic. I mean, you know, when you look at the Epstein Island, right? You look at that weird-looking blue and white building. It looks like something out of like Egyptian style paint or whatever, what have you. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely satanic. So, I mean, obviously we know anybody that's doing that kind of stuff, they are satanic. Anybody that's, you know, taking and sex trafficking children and all that, PDF filing, all of that stuff. I mean, we obviously know. But, you know, to have the receipts to that, that's definitely something. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Ghislaine Maxwell immunity.
Well, let's see if we can pull that.
I certainly believe that the Israelis are making sure that the Americans do not stop them from the killing in Gaza. I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
Yeah.
Here
so,
is senior Mossad.
Hold on.
Wanted.
Let's play the action clip.
Agent that American politicians are trapped by Israel through Epstein blackmail, which is well known. Ari Ben Menashe also states that Ehud Barak and Bill Clinton almost reached a two-state solution, but were blackmailed by Mossad through Epstein, which is true. This has come up for decades. So this is something real. This is real criticism from a high-level Mossad officer that thinks this is wrong. Here it is.
Last week, Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, came on this show, the emeritus professor of law at Harvard, and said, no, Trump's behavior as regards Gaza, as regards bombing Iran, as regards bombing Yemen, all his behavior can't be explained by any blackmail tapes of Trump. Do you believe in any way that the genocide in Gaza is being prolonged by the late Jeffrey Epstein?
I certainly believe that the Israelis are making sure that the Americans do not stop them from the killing in Gaza. I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
And what do you think of Dershowitz's denial?
Hold on a second. I want to give you an example. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak met Arafat in the 90s, and there was no deal. The reason was Epstein. They were being blackmailed by Epstein. Ehud Barak was also a friend of Epstein, the prime minister of Israel at the time. But he was being blackmailed by the Israeli right wing as well. And they stopped an agreement with Arafat. They were about to reach an agreement there for a two-state solution, but that was stopped because of Epstein. They were both being blackmailed by Epstein.
Ehud Barak has been on.
Israeli.
Ehud Barak has been on this show. He walked off this show. People can look it up, and that was not because I asked him about any blackmail alleged evidence against him.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm cutting this on the afternoon
Yeah.
of July 30th, 2025. You
So-
have 7 days.
So, very interesting claim here from a high-level Mossad officer, Ari Ben Menashe, who confirmed that Epstein worked for Mossad and had been blackmailing presidents, and has been doing it for decades, apparently. Matt, what's your thoughts on that?
Everything that we believe to be true, yet we don't have evidence to substantiate it, becomes a thorn in our side. And this is why conspiracy theories persist forever. It's because of the lack of government intervention to take things that are theorized or suspected, bring it into the light, and then allow us to have a deep investigation with authority through subpoena power in order to take a conspiracy or take the hypothesis such as this of skepticism and then nail it and get it all done with here. So because the government's unwilling to do that, that's the role of the media right now, is to create circumstantial cases and get eyewitnesses' testimonies, gather them together and try to put pressure on them. So that's the best that we can do right now until the government's willing to be the arbiters and be the judges of what is true and what is not true by assembling a jury and allowing this to get into the eyes and ears of the American people. And it's never going to continue. It's never going to end until that happens, because that's where conclusions take place.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that's really happening here, of course, Israel is not innocent. And of course, if Epstein was used as some sort of a, blackmailing tool to blackmail presidents for the benefit of Israel. Like, God is going to have his day where he judges righteously. And there's not going to be an excuse. There's not going to be a way out. There's no way out without repentance and faith in the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah. But here's what I think is also happening in the spirit realm is there's a prophecy in Zechariah chapter 12. And I'm going to read just a few verses here. It says in verse 1, the burden of the word of the Lord against Israel, thus says the Lord, who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut to pieces, though all nations of the earth gathered against it. It says all the nations of the earth are going to gather eventually against Israel and against Jerusalem. And I think in some way, the corruption that's been taking place that maybe gets brought to the light, perhaps what we are seeing or witnessing is the exposing of this Epstein debacle, which we want transparent. We want to know because we want those who were involved. We're not so much concerned about Epstein, and this is for Donald Trump. If he ever hears this, or if anybody ever hears this that can get this to him, it's not about Donald Trump. It's not about Epstein per se. It's about the globalist elite. It's about this Mossad agent. And, it's interesting because you're welcome, Donald. I posted on this X account on Alex Jones, and I commented on that video right after he posted it, and I said, I can't remember. Let me look to see what I said. I said, this is why it matters. And actually, Alex Jones retweeted me and said 100%. This is why Epstein matters, is because we want to expose the corruption, because it is right to expose the corruption. It is right to expose the darkness. Now, I can see where MAGA, the right wing, the America First, individuals, I can see how in the spirit realm, this is going to begin to drive people against Israel. And I think this is where, obviously we want the corruption. We want to expose it because we want it stopped. But then we also have to be careful that we are not going against God's plan for Jerusalem and for Israel. And so there is a balance that we have to have in this. Brother Matt, your thoughts on that, or where are you at on that?
I'm just happy that we have that we have more information that's coming out, so that it's going to take a avalanche of information in order to push these guys to release and do whatever they need to do in order to be the final conclusion on this whole Epstein situation. And it's when our news cycle stops, when we stop having things that contribute, which is where we'll lose our momentum, and then we'll just be the boy who cried wolf, who said, "We told you we wanted Epstein," didn't end up happening. And whether or not they're going after the deep state right now, meaning rumors of indictments on Comey and Clinton, so on and so forth, if that's fast tracked, we're going to be happy. We'll be able to keep our hope meters alive. But if that's delayed, then it's very likely that is just something meant to appease us in the meantime. But I don't know. I don't believe that everything's a coincidence. And as new things come out, especially members of his family speaking out, people who, like we watched in the last video, that were his actually inmates or associated with him. I think that will continue to fuel the fire in order to pressure the release of not only all the data that they do have, but to couple an investigation to the deep state backed by the evidence collected through Jeffrey Epstein. This Israel skepticism is not going anywhere. So much so as there's these rumors exist that he was a member of an intelligence agency over there.
Yeah, you know, one of the things though, obviously, like this guy that was out, like this high level Mossad officer, like I think Ari Ben Menashe. I'm assuming that's Manasseh. We would say that in English, Manasseh. But like, number one, he didn't look very much like a Mossad agent to me. So that's kind of something a little bit weird to me. So I do have to question it just a little bit. I'm not necessarily, I'm taking, you know, everything with a grain of salt, but at the same time, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he is. And it would make sense when he was talking about.
Do I look like a Mossad agent?
No, not at all.
How did?
Not at all.
That's how we do it, Alex.
Yeah. But when he was talking about that two-state solution that Bill Clinton was with Barack and the Palestinian diplomat, I can't remember his name. But when he was talking about that, I remember back in like 1998, 1999, I was in high school, and I remember my history teacher talking about this meeting and how history was being made. I remember that happening, but I don't remember the details. And obviously I wasn't that big on learning about Israel or anything like that. But it was interesting that he mentioned that, because what he was saying was that it fell through the cracks. It never happened, the two-state solution, because of Epstein. And my question that I have about his testimony is, now he's saying, this is why I say it's weird, because he doesn't look like he's a Mossad agent, and I don't think he's working for Mossad anymore, because he wouldn't be showing his face. Is that now he's saying that Israel in Gaza, it's going on because of Epstein, and that's the reason why America hasn't stopped it. It's because of Epstein. Well, that would have to mean that Donald Trump is probably within the Epstein files, according to him. I mean, that's the only reason why I would think that this guy is speaking in that way. And so that's my only reserve. I guess the only reserve that I have about this guy's testimony is he doesn't look like Mossad agent. If maybe he was in the past, he's not there now. And how would he know what's going on within Mossad if he's not in there anymore? Maybe he knows somebody. Maybe he still knows a lot of people. So, anyways, just have some questions.
We'll keep the pressure on. Chat room, do your thing. Keep the pressure on Donald Trump. Okay. Sorry, guys, but we had technical issues before the show, and that it just sucks the life out of me. It's like a vacuum cleaner attached straight to my mouth when we have technical problems, and it's annoying. Right now, we're missing the lower thirds, aren't advancing properly, so it's okay. I should have figured that out later. Alex, shall we go to the next situation here?
Yeah, this is breaking. This is just coming out. So a little bit of context about this next topic is the Texas House votes to arrest House Democrats. And this was a situation that began brewing because the redistricting of the House seats and the House representatives. Okay. What is that, Matt? Who did that?
I guess
what is that?
I guess the screenshot didn't work.
Yeah, that's fine. That don't matter. Just play the movie clip or play cut 59. I'm gonna start saying that.
Being 85 ayes in 6 days, the motion prevails. The Sergeant at Arms and any officers appointed by her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purposes of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrants of arrest if necessary until further order of the House.
Yeah, so right there, the Texas House has essentially issued the ability to issue out arrest warrants for the House of Representative Democrats in Texas. They fled the state of Texas, and according to Texas legislation, in order to pass a bill within the state of Texas, you need 2/3 of the House to vote. And so they're trying to pass a bill which is going to include aid to the floods there in central Texas. They're trying to pass also the redistricting of the House of Representatives. This is to give the GOP an additional 5 seats within Texas. This is a big push from Donald Trump to keep power within the House of Representatives, to keep a majority within the House of Representatives. But look, this is something that happens all the time. The Democrats are trying to make it a big thing, like as though Republicans are doing something that is unordinary. This stuff happens all the time. People call it gerrymandering, people call it redistricting. You can call it whatever you want to. Democrats do it, Republicans do it. It happens all the time. And the Democrats within Texas, the House of Representatives Democrats. Thank you, Matt. We can hear your plates in the background. Please mute yourself. The House of Representatives Democrats within Texas, they fled Texas, knowing that they were going to have to come and vote for this. Now, whether they vote yes or no, that didn't matter. I mean, they were going to vote no anyway, but it's still going to pass because they had the majority. And so they knew that if they fled Texas, if they didn't show up, 61 seats, 61 Democrats with 150 representatives in Texas, 61 Democrats went to Illinois. They went to they left the state in a type of rebellion and a type of protest against the redistricting within Texas. And so now you have it, is that now the Texas House of Representatives, the Sergeant at Arms in Texas, under the order of Governor Greg Abbott, has issued arrest warrant for every Democrat. If they do not show up, arrest warrants will go out.
Good.
And so thank you, Matt. We heard the plates in the background. We heard the clanging of the knife and the fork.
Just an avocado.
I don't know, man. We heard you cooking something, man.
Hey, don't tell
Somebody
me.
in the comments say, let Matt cook.
All right.
All right.
Well, what else you want to do?
That's yours, man. You're up. You're up, dude.
Guys, the fact that Candace Owens has been going so hard against Macron and his wife, I think it sort of tells me something. I like to think I'm a good reader of people, and it seems like Candace is not too worried. She recently went on Tucker Carlson. The fact that Tucker Carlson brings Candace Owens on to further discuss this lets me think that Tucker Carlson's not too worried, because Macron has issued a response to Candace suing her for defamation. Let's listen to a little bit of this interview between Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. And again, the reason why this matters, guys, is Satanism. That's why this matters. Because at the end of the day, the people that are involved in doing all this gender-changing stuff behind the scenes but won't admit it, and they're creating a population of people who are eager to themselves become transgenders. This is not happening by accident, and we've got a lot of boldness that we need to get to the bottom of here.
Just back up a little bit for those who don't know what you're referring to, the Trump call. What does that mean?
So I was called by Trump in February. Emmanuel Macron had visited Trump, and I had done this series about, it was about his wife, Brigitte Macron. And the series got a lot of views, and Emmanuel Macron personally flew to DC and asked Trump to ask me to shut up, to just stop speaking about his wife. And
Did you know this was going to rise to the level of international incident?
No. And it's actually making me go back, and historically I'm thinking, all the times we were told that a war ended because of this or because of that. If this was one element of negotiation of Emmanuel Macron to Trump, and the topic of why he was, ostensibly there was to discuss the end of the Ukrainian and Russian war, but you're taking Trump aside and you're asking him to shut up this podcaster in the U.S. I'm wondering if anything that we're told in our history books is real.
So that is exactly right. I have wondered the same. That is just absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Every minute of my show. Trump certainly didn't. I know Trump, I think, stays much more in the mainstream media.
Yes.
In terms of watching what he watches. But
he must have been completely confused.
He sounded very confused. He said he was very confused when the leader of France took him aside.
Of a nuclear-armed country.
Mm-hmm, during negotiations for Ukraine and Russia to inquire about whether or not he knew Candace Owens. And clearly it was an emergency, because it wasn't like Trump called me 2 days after or a week after. It wasn't like a side conversation that, let's take care of that. I was messaged by the intermediary hours after Macron left, maybe even an hour after Macron had left, and said, we need to get on the phone with you.
The President of the United States.
Well, first, the person said, somebody very close to the President of the United States is asking me to ask you to stop talking about Brigitte's penis. And
this is the true face of diplomacy. I love it.
True face of diplomacy. And I love.
Don't you dare give a disclaimer, Alex. We're allowed to say the word penis.
Because I said, okay, no, bye. This seems ridiculous. I kind of questioned whether or not it was even true. But I liked the person who called me very much, and I thought maybe I was being a bit short there because I'm 9 months pregnant, and I was at the time I think 5 or 6 months pregnant, and I tend to get short the more pregnant I become. And so I called him back and I just said, can you explain to me what's really going on? And that individual told me that it was presented to him as a condition of ending the Russian-Ukrainian war. This was something that he brought up in the midst of these negotiations. That's how it was presented to me from a third-party person. And then I was just completely floored. And I just took a second, looked at my husband, and the first thing we said to one another is, no one will ever believe us. This is beyond the realm of things that could be plausible. They're going to think I'm making this up and I'm lying. And even when I did eventually tell the story months later, people were like, there's no way that this could have happened. And until that, presenting it as an element of the Ukraine-Russian war was wrong. He was and so he's nitpicking. His theory was
This feels like the kind of end stage of something.
Yep.
I hate the phrase global elite because it sounds so spooky or whatever, but that's what it is.
The depraved. I don't even call them the elite. They're the depraved, and they've just been running the game for so long that they're not even getting creative anymore.
But there's always a part of town with depraved people. Every society has the depraved, the depraved community. But has there been since Rome really a whole class of depraved people with this much power? That's what gets me.
I think so. Yeah. The more that I study and the more that I take a look at this picture, because at first, you go through this period where you're going, am I crazy, or are they all defending children being raped? This can't be right. Somebody's going to stand up and say something. And the only thing that you can do in those moments where you're questioning whether or not this could be the circumstance is to educate yourself further.
Yes.
And I find that whatever area they have sort of an inordinate response to, where they're like getting very angry about something that seems so simple, is probably where you should press your thumb the hardest. And I did this with like Sigmund Freud. I kind of said something on my show about how like Sigmund Freud was like a pervert and getting into children and incest, his whole theory, blaming the children for their parents being incestuous, and the reaction across the press, like, how dare she? I'm like, he's dead. Why are you defending this guy?
Not American.
He did present a theory that these children who were being raped by, by their fathers were actually attracted to them. Why are you defending this? And then I got educated about it and started reading books and stunned. Like, yes, this is actually something that he was doing. And I learned this from the person who controlled the Sigmund Freud archives.
Matt, give us something good about this interview, man. I'm falling asleep here, dude. This stuff is boring. What is she talking about? What are they talking about?
Well, what she's going to be getting into is, well, she was referencing, well, who is this attorney that Macron has hired in order to sue her? And this is an attorney.
Who is it?
This is an attorney who has a history of defending pedophiles and with sticky cases all around her. And she gets into other details as the friends that are around Macron are all pedophiles, people that have had situation and scandals that have came up over the years. And the reasons why she's moving to discuss Sigmund Freud and Edward Bernays, that she was just bringing up there as a highlight, is because Sigmund Freud had a lot of writings that were normalizing pedophilia and even actually blaming the children for the reason why the parents were attracted to them in the first place.
Okay.
So Candace is bringing to our attention a bunch of extenuating circumstances, also known as, circumstantial evidence, that there's a lot of weird pedophilia circulating all around Macron and within Macron's crew and friends and even his legal defense team. And the reason why I think it's important is because Tucker Carlson has a lot to lose, and there is such a thing as defamation, and him aligning himself with Candace on his YouTube channel isn't something that I think he's doing lightly. People collect sources over the years. His sources are just friends who are confidants that will tell you things that other people can't. Like we just had PJ on the show. He's sort of a confidant or perhaps a source of what's happening over there in Alberta, being the fact that he lives in Alberta. And I think that what Candace is bringing to the table and what Tucker Carlson is bringing to the table is a variety of their sources that you see them making maneuvers to double down, triple down on the release of the Epstein files, and then furthermore pointing the finger at these pedophile cults that extend outside of the Epstein file saga.
Okay. All right. Yeah, man. All right. Well, let's listen to it. Yeah.
No, it's okay. We can end it.
Wrote this amazing book called The Assault on...
And Candace. All right.
Sorry.
No. Nothing to be sorry about.
I just, she was just, she was talking about some of this stuff and Sigrid Freud. I thought it was going to be like, more punchline, but my bad. Okay.
Let's go to Gaza.
Let's go to Gaza. So before we play this next clip, because I'm surely she talks a lot about Israel within the interview with Tucker Carlson. Matter of fact, CBN was just covering this interview also about Candace Owens saying that Israel is a demonic nation, and I don't necessarily obviously saying a demonic nation. I think you have to really be careful how you state that. But are they of God? No. Does that mean they're of the devil? I guess you could say that. Is Israel largely rigid by the Holy Spirit? No.
When
does
Islam
that make them
calls us the great Satan, are they correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah. So I mean, did Jesus call the Jews, sons of the devil? Yes. When he was talking to like Pharisees and things like that, people that wanted to kill him. Yeah, he did. And so, but anyhow, moving on to Gaza, there's obviously recently we had covered the genocide, the supposed genocide, the attempting starvation of the Gazan individuals. And we were talking a little bit about how it really didn't make sense that Israel is purposefully starving and creating a genocide within Gaza. Now, I want to state this as though, while I don't think that Israel is particularly innocent in all of their doings, of course not. I would say, though, that is there some hunger issues? 100% without a doubt. There's got to be some
got some hunger issues.
There's got to be some shortages of food and people are hungry. I get it. Yes, that's probably occurring on a level that obviously we may not fully see over here. But are they starving people purposefully? And I just don't think that's the case. But that's what you're hearing on the media. Right? That's what you're hearing on the media, that Israel is starving people. And isn't it interesting that happened over the weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, that Israel was starving people? There was a big old media blast about it. And this past weekend, there was some propaganda and a propaganda video piece that came out from Hamas, that Hamas had put out. And that comes to our next clip, play cut 159.
You're just making up numbers over there now. You stop it.
זה ליומיים עכשיו. כל הפחית הזאת זה ליומיים.
This is a real clip. Is that it? Did it? Okay. This is a real clip. The gentleman's name, I can't remember. His last name is David. He is a hostage in Gaza. He is one of the hostages been in captivity for over 600 days. Okay, I think the day that this was released, he was in captivity for 666 days. And that's not propaganda. This was given to him, and they gave him a can of food. And the reason why they gave him the can of food was to say that if this is all that Gazans have to eat, this is all that he's going to eat. And their propaganda was to say that if Gazans are starving, he's going to starve. But see, this is where they messed up. Okay, this is where they messed up. Matt, I'm going to have you bring that clip back up.
Okay.
For me, please.
Same clip.
Same clip. Start it over. And I want to pause it right in the beginning. Right there. Good. Okay. I want you to look at this. This video clip was made as propaganda to say that they're being starved, so the hostages are going to be starved. But here's the problem. Here you have the starved man who looks like skin and bones, unfortunately, brutally treated.
He doesn't look that bad.
And literally, oh, he looks bad. Matt, come on. He looks bad.
I'd like to look like that.
There's yeah, no. Look at it. You can see the skeleton on this guy. Here's the problem with this video is the hand that is reaching out to give him food. Does that look like a starving arm to you? It doesn't. But yet the propaganda that was being put out was to say that because they are starving, the hostages are going to starve. But the hand that is literally handing out the food does not look like a starving hand. And this is what you have with the terrorist state of Palestine. And look, I'm just going to say it for what it is. That's what it is. It is a terrorist state. Okay? It is ruled by Hamas. Within its very own constitution and charter, it states that their goal is to kill and eradicate the Jews from Israel. That is their mission. Okay? And this is why you cannot make agreements with this type of people. Okay? This is why you cannot negotiate with a terrorist state of Hamas. This is why Israel, I'm going to say it right like this.
Israel shouldn't fund Hamas and shouldn't put them in power in the first place and control their elections so that they get into position of power. And Israel shouldn't have put it. Shouldn't by proxy put them in power. Well, then who is Israel? Of course they're evil.
Matt. I agree, Matt. But see, this is the problem when you get the Western world and all the rest of the world that doesn't want to Hamas. Okay? This is what happens when you get the rest of the world that want to create a two-state solution. Okay, within Palestine, within a Muslim and Jewish nation right next to each other, when you have in the very foundation of the Muslim, this Muslim terrorist organization, their constitution is to eradicate Jews from Israel. Okay, and yet the Western world has tried to push for a two-state solution. We just watched a video with the Mossad agent talking about it back in the 1990s, how they tried to make it happen. Okay. And this is why you cannot have a two-state solution. This is absolutely why you just cannot have it. Okay? Now, does that make Israel innocent in any type of war crime if they've committed it? No. I'm not saying that they're innocent. I'm not saying that everything they've done is by the book. I don't know everything that they've done. Okay? But does it make sense that Israel would be starving people out in the open, and yet here you have in the secret where there's only one camera, where there's only, in a bunker somewhere, where you have somebody who's actually being starved. He's actually being starved, and it's actually on camera. And that's the lies that are being told from Hamas. So that's my piece on that, man. Your thoughts, Matt? You can tell me what you think.
I mean, we'll just never know anything about anything because we don't. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters, like I was saying before, an investigation's got to take place. We can't even get into any position. For 9/11, we were accusing Al Qaeda of the CIA and NSA government agencies having worked with and worked with Al Qaeda in order to create a boogeyman. We see the exact same story reflected over there in Hamas, okay? That do they need the boogeyman over there in Palestine in order to continue to manipulate the people and utilize war as a means to extrapolate funds away from people? I don't know. At the end of the day, a healthy distrust of governments, it only benefits you for so long, And what I suffer from is a hope deferred that makes the heart grow sick of ever being able to come to a conclusion on these issues and having an investigation. And I'm definitely not saying that Trump has any interest whatsoever in unraveling anything to do with Israel. But to me, the deep state of the United States or a deep state of Israel, it's all one and the same. And I'd like to find ourselves getting to the bottom of it. Gosh, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Could it be? Could the images that we see be true? I've seen both sides for the past couple of weeks, but you can't just take what Israel's response is and shove it down the toilet and say no, they're lying. So who knows what the heck is really going on over there?
Well, and this is why I think it's important to be somewhere in the middle, right? Not just in 100% agreement with what everything that Israel does. Okay, let's take, for example, the Third Temple. Like, is that really a good thing? You know, you have Zionist Christians, and they're more pro-Zion, Zionists than, and they, you know, Christians in Texas that created, or I shouldn't say created, but they bred red heifers so that they can have the red heifers to do the temple sacrifices. Like, is that, I mean, that's demonic, right? At its core, it's demonic to try to help Jews create a third temple and then create so they can do their sacrifices according to the law when Christ is the sacrifice. So yes, I understand it. We should be somewhere in the middle. Whereas we don't get deceived by the deception of Islam and the deception of Hamas, but at the same time, we shouldn't get, in some sense, Jerusalem syndrome in our faith and believe everything that Israel does is righteous or right or good. They're going to have some criticism. It is good to criticize and to critique things from a biblical lens. And I think if we do that, we're going to land right in the middle somewhere. So,
all right, let's go with this next clip we got here.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and two times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers. We put our notes into the wall as just traditional. And we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel, and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have. God bless.
Yes, sir.
I bring up that clip because Alex Jones, in whom we love him. We're praying for him in his spiritual walk and his faith journey and his coming to reality in the spiritual warfare. He had posted this, and he had said that America will always stand with Israel. That's what Scripture tells us to do, claimed Speaker of the House Mike Johnson while at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. And I just felt like that was a little bit unfair of Alex Jones, because that's not entirely what happened. Mike Johnson said to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. And see, this is why I say we have to be careful not to lean so far over to the one side or the other. Okay? And if we look at everything with a balanced eye, with discernment, we're going to land somewhere in the middle. And I think what Mike Johnson said is right. The Bible does say in the Psalms to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now, I think that if we do that from a New Testament context, because that was in the book of Psalms, technically that is the Old Covenant. But if we do pray for the peace of Jerusalem in a New Testament context, what does that look like? Well, that looks like praying for the Prince of Peace to reveal himself to his people, that there would be a revival that would manifest in Israel, not just amongst Jews, because there's Muslims that live in Israel, right? We would want the Prince of Peace to reveal himself to people of Gaza, right? To Hamas even, right? The Bible says that God is not willing that any should perish, but that all come to repentance. And see, this is where we have to have that balance, right? God is not for innocent people dying. God is not for people to be starving or even tortured to death. This young man when that clip that we saw, it was in another clip that they actually made him start digging his own grave. And so, we have to be careful to view things biblically. Matt, there's a lot of stuff in the background. Matt, I don't know if you can hear me.
I hear you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. You can't hear me?
Yeah. I also hear a lot of water, and I hope that's a faucet. But in all honesty, I'm trying to be serious, Anyways, whatever. Let's move on. Oh, what's the next clip?
All right. Well, it seems as if we have we have nothing.
Yeah. No. Well, that brings us. Yeah. Where's the clip? Is it not? Does it not show the link that I put in here? Right. Anyways, guys, pray for us. Okay, pray for us, man. We had a really good week last week. We had like over 200 subscribers, new subscribers to the new YouTube channel. Pray for us, that we, do things with professionalism, and that, God uses this to bring glory to his name, that we can bring the news, that we can bring whatever spiritual insight into things of culture, news, politics, and all that kind of stuff. And that we can be balanced in our viewpoint with, uncompromised of Scripture, but at the same time have hearts of compassion for all. And so that's all I got, Brother Matt. Final words.
We're Instagram, we're TikTok. Hello, everybody live.
Oh, man.
In time, I don't know if you're going to be part of the whole show, but eventually you have to go to YouTube. This is Jim Brewer Live. And always remember this. No media, no TV, no news equals free mind. I don't know if you know that. Stop watching the news. E is for evil, and S is for Satan. So, it's pretty... so, we're going to get in a lot of...
I just thought that was funny. And so Jim Brewer, I was on a plane the other day, and I was watching Jim Brewer live, because he's hilarious, man. He's so funny, and he's so into the Lord, so into Jesus, always talking about his wife and him and his relationship with God. And he has a wonderful new series called Isn't God Funny, which I recommend. I watched the 4 episodes of it. This really touching stories that Jim shared with the community, and it was hilarious. So he started this new Jim Brewer Live thing, and so I watched episodes 4, 3, 2, and I'm like, this is amazing. And I went to the first episode. He's got a Buddha sitting on his desk. I was like, all he talks about is Jesus, So then in later episodes, it's like I was just commenting because I went immediately to the comments to see what people were saying about that darn Buddha, And and I just comment like, well, I trust that the Jim will definitely take care of this. I don't know how this happened, And then sure enough, it disappears from the desk. I don't know how that thing could have made it, but ultimately, I mean, I just hear Jim pouring, really the Holy Spirit working through him, and I recommend everyone to go check out those Ain't God Funny series that he's doing over there with personal testimonies in his life.
Where do you watch that? Where do you catch that at?
On Jim Brewer Live, his YouTube channel. Jim Brewer.
Oh, okay, on his YouTube channel. Okay.
Yeah, his YouTube channel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. And remember, it's Faith in Nation. God bless you guys. GodGears.com.